G'day and welcome, everybody. And thanks for joining us here on United Israel World Union. John O'Vandor with you. And I'm with you because we had the United Israel World Union conference just this past weekend. Great success. And g'day to everyone who's watching who attended and everyone who watched online. I'm addressing the third part, or rather the third topic of my talk that I didn't get to. I ran out of time. And what I was looking at was what I proposed to be three plausible alternative interpretations within the Moses scroll that significantly differs to that of the traditional view in the Pentateuch. The first two that I addressed, if you want to see those, you can go back and find it on the United Israel channel there. The first one was the 40 years of wandering in the wilderness. The second one was the matter of Peor, right? Baal Peor. What exactly happened there, and how might we understand the Moses scroll in a dramatically different way? So I encourage you to go back and do that. But it went a little bit long, and so we are picking up with the third topic, and that is transgenerational punishments. We're doing that now. So I'm going to kick off with a verse, and I want you to see if maybe you can put it in the comments or in the chat. Tell me where you think this verse comes from. You ready? This is it. So it happens that the father's sin comes upon his son, and so the sin of my father comes upon me too. It so happens that the father's sin comes upon his son, and so the sin of my father comes upon me too. I'll let you think about that just for a couple of minutes. Maybe not a couple of minutes. Maybe just while I take a sip of my coffee. And I'll put you out of your misery and tell you that it's not actually a Bible verse. It is a verse from what is known as Masili's plague prayers. Masili was a 14th century BCE Hittite king. His father, let me see if I can pronounce his father's name, Suppiluliuma, and his older brother, Anawanda II, they fell victim to a plague which absolutely ravaged the Hittites in the 1330s BCE. And so Masili became king. And in his very earnest attempt to appease the gods, Masili confesses his belief that it so happens that the father's sin comes upon his son, and so the sin of my father comes upon me too. So the question is this the position of the Hebrew Bible? Is it the position of the Moses scroll? Is this how the God of Israel operates? And this is what I want to address now. I'm going to start by reading a couple of Bible verses, and I'm going to kick off with 2 Samuel chapter 12. 2 Samuel chapter 12, it says, and you all know this, and then David said to Nathan, the prophet, I have sinned against the Lord. And Nathan said to David, the Lord has passed on your sin. You shall not die. However, since by this deed you have shown utter disrespect for the Lord, the child himself who is born to you shall certainly die. And the Lord struck the child that Uriah's widow bore to David, so that he was very sick. In the verse 18, and it happened on the seventh day that the child died. By the way, the Jewish Study Bible, which I love so much, Brettler's notes on that for passing on the sin, he said it would probably be better translated as transferred. You shall not die. God has transferred your sin. Where? To the Son. And now he is sick, and now he is dead. Job chapter 21, verse 19 to 21. Job asks a rhetoric question. He says, Allah stores up the iniquity for the wicked, the iniquity of the wicked for his sons. Let him repay the wicked, so that he himself will experience it. Let his own eyes see his destruction. Let him drink the wrath of Shaddai, drink the cup of the wrath of Shaddai. For what does he care about the house he leaves behind when his allotted months come to an end? This is Job's complaint. And Job is replying to his companion's assertion that God punishes successive generations for their father's iniquity. Job protests the claim, demanding that God should instead punish the wicked directly. He says, for what does he care about the house that he leaves behind when his allotted months come to an end? And yet the first commandment, as it appears in both Exodus and Deuteronomy, includes a divinely governed transgenerational punishment as a deterrence against its transgression. The prohibition of idolatry, first commandment, in the opening of the Decalogue in Exodus chapter 20 includes the following caveat. It says, I, Jehovah, thy God, am a jealous God, visiting the iniquity of the fathers upon the sons, upon the third and upon the fourth generation of them that hate me. Deuteronomy is practically identical with the addition of a single vav, so that it says, and upon the fourth generation, and upon the third generation. Numbers 14, chapter 18 elaborates somewhat. Jehovah is slow to anger and abundant in loving kindness, forgiving iniquity and transgression, and that will by no means clear the guilty, visiting the iniquity of the fathers upon the sons, upon the third and upon the fourth generation. Exodus, it appears again in Exodus chapter 34, verses 6 to 7, and further embellishes Jehovah, Jehovah, a God merciful and gracious, slow to anger, abundant in loving kindness and truth, keeping loving kindness for thousands, forgiving iniquity and transgression and sin, and that will by no means clear the guilty, visiting the iniquity of the fathers upon the sons, and upon the sons' sons, it adds, and then upon the third and upon fourth generation. So this is the caveat that is referred to as an example of transgenerational retribution or vicarious punishment. Again, get that from Brettler in the Jewish Study Bible. The idea being that the subsequent generations of the individual who commits this particular iniquity will suffer divinely imposed detriment as a result. In short, God punishes the innocent for the sins of their father or their grandfather or their great-grandfather. So while there are several passages peppered throughout the Tanakh stating that God will give every man, and I quote, give every man according to his ways, according to the fruit of his deeds, or according to the fruit of his doings, and that's Jeremiah 17:10. And actually, I'll give you the list for those who want to look them up. Let me just mention a few of these for you. Job 34:11, Isaiah 59:18, Nahum 1 verses 2 and 3, Jeremiah 32:19, we're going to come back to that one later, Ezekiel 33:20, Psalm 62:12, and Proverbs 24:12. That list may not be exhaustive, but that's a few if you want to check those out. But it's Deuteronomy chapter 7, verses 9 to 10, that explicitly limits divine retribution to the transgressing individual. It says, and it sounds a bit like, the passage from Numbers and the latter passage of Exodus chapter 34, I think it was, that I just read. It says, know therefore that the Lord your God, he is God, the faithful God, who keeps his covenant and his faithfulness to 1,000 generations for those who love him and keep his commandments, but he repays those who hate him to their faces to eliminate them. Again, repays those who hate him to their faces to eliminate them. And more specifically, it says in the last line here, he will not hesitate toward him who hates him. He will repay him to his face. That verse again is Deuteronomy chapter 7, verse 9 and 10. He will repay him to his face. So it's specific to the individual. Even more precisely than that, Deuteronomy chapter 24, verse 16 says, the fathers shall not be put to death for the sons, neither shall the sons be put to death for the fathers. Every man shall be put to death for his own sin. Again, specific to the individual. Jeremiah chapter 31, verses 29 and 30 says, he sides with Job, by the way. It would appear that he sides with Job's protests and speaks of a future time when the people of Israel will know better. He says, in those days they shall say no more, the fathers have eaten sour grapes and the son's teeth are set on edge. But everyone shall die for his own iniquity. Every man that eats sour grapes, his teeth will be set on edge. And now, by the way, before I continue on to the next one, just returning to a verse that I mentioned before in that list, and this is Jeremiah chapter 32, 18 and 19, which kind of seems to want to play both sides. This is interesting. It says, let's see now, 32, 18 to 19, doing kindness to thousands and recompensing iniquity of fathers into the bosom of their sons after them. God, the great, the mighty, Jehovah of hosts is his name. I'm reading from the Young's literal translation, by the way. It goes on to say in verse 9, and then that first verse, right, sounds a little bit like he's siding with, and this is directly after Jeremiah is saying, no more shall it be said that fathers have eaten sour grapes and the son's teeth are set on edge. That's not going to be a thing. Everyone shall die for his own iniquity. But then, only a few verses later in chapter 32, it says, recompensing iniquity of fathers upon sons after them. And then it goes on to say, though in verse 19, great in counsel and mighty in act, in that thine eyes are open on all their ways of the sons of Adam, to give each according to his ways and according to the fruit of his doing. Right? A little bit, it's difficult. It certainly seems, there is absolutely some verses that say, sure, transgenerational punishment, it's a thing. And then others that say, no, it's specific to the individual. The individual commits iniquity. The individual bears the repercussions of that, divine repercussions. And then you have verses, one after another, that seem to be closely aligned to playing both sides of the fence, if you like. All right. Ezekiel, however, concurs with Jeremiah chapter 31. Ezekiel chapter 18, verses 1 to 20, referencing that same proverb, emphasizes in significant detail that it is the transgressor, and always has been the transgressor, that who is accountable for their own sins. It says, what do you mean by repeating this proverb concerning the land of Israel? The fathers have eaten sour grapes, and the sons' teeth are set on edge. As I live, declares the Lord God, this proverb shall no more be used by you in Israel. Behold, all souls are mine, the soul of the Father as well as the soul of the Son, the soul whose sins shall die. By the way, when looking at some of the ancient sages of Israel, some of the ancient Jewish sages, and there are many, many attempts to reconcile these, number of verses on one side of the fence with the other verses on the other side of the fence and try and make it make sense. One of those attempts, and believe me, some of them are really out there. I'm not going to read it to you because it's really convoluted. If you want to do that, you can certainly chase that up. But one such explanation was that Ezekiel came and overruled Moses. That's a thing. But in any case, Ezekiel putting this to the people, one would imagine the people perplexed and responding, but the first commandment, did not Jehovah tell us that he visits the iniquity of the fathers upon the sons to the third and the fourth generation? So which is it? So I turned to the Moses scroll, of course, to see if we could get any clarity, as we so often do when there is some confusion. Does Elohim enact punishment upon the sons of a transgressing father in the Moses scroll? So here's the interesting thing. The Moses scroll And Seth, I might get you to put that slide up if that's all right. Taking a sip. So in the Moses scroll, the caveat is not attached to the first commandment, the prohibition against idolatry. Rather, the seventh commandment, as it appears in the Moses scroll, in which Elohim declares, "You shall not swear by my name to deceive, for I am jealous," or as Ross puts it, "I am passionate." And they practically mean the same thing. The iniquity of fathers is upon sons, upon thirds, and upon fourths, bearing my name to deceive. I am Elohim, your God. What does that mean? Well, the first part is reasonably easy. The first part, you shall not swear in my name to deceive, for I am jealous. I would direct you to Ezekiel chapter 39, verse 25, where God says, "Now I will restore the fortunes of Jacob and have mercy on all the house of Israel, and I will be jealous for my holy name." If you want to elaborate on that and the definition of what it means to be jealous, him jealous of his holy name, you can look to Ezekiel chapter 39, verse 7, Ezekiel chapter 36, verses 20 to 23. I'll let you do that in your own time. But here's the thing, and I mentioned in my previous presentation at the conference that I work at a library, the Reformed Theological Library in Geelong. And they very kindly and generously facilitate my research. And I occupy this beautiful large library with a gentleman by the name of Alistair McEwen, who I like to call Detective McEwen, a teacher of Hebrew and Old Testament. And I often just plague him with questions, and he's very generous with his time. And I ran this by him. I said, "What do you think of this translation?" And he said, "Well, okay, but there is a problem, and that is that et avon, the iniquity, requires a verb. Et is the marker of the direct object in Hebrew. That is the object that receives the action, the verb. A subject performs the action upon the object. In this case, et avon, the iniquity. And it is Idan Dershowitz that supplies perhaps a solution to that in his, many of you know, and hopefully have read by now, the valediction of Moses in regards to what we refer to as the Moses scroll. He refers to as the valediction of Moses. You can read it online. Just incredible work. He translates this passage thus. He says, "You shall not swear in my name falsely, for I shall avenge," and there he supplies the verb, "I shall avenge the transgression of fathers against sons, against grandsons and great-grandsons, for those who bear my name falsely. I am Elohim, your God." And this is interesting because to my ears, and perhaps to yours, the beginning of this translation seems to side with transgenerational punishment. But then look at the end, "for those who bear my name falsely." So at the end, it seems to side with, no, I'm targeting the individual who commits the iniquity, which reminded me again of the verse that I read before, Jeremiah chapter 32, verses 18 to 19. 18 sounds like it's siding with transgenerational punishment. 19 seems to side with the idea that God only punishes those who commit the actual iniquity. There's another way to translate it. Of course, the way that Ross has translated it, "For I am jealous," or "I am passionate. The iniquity of fathers is upon sons, grandsons, great-grandsons." And it does, as I said, it leaves that et avon, the iniquity. It leaves the et sort of hanging without a verb. There is one verse in the Bible that I know of that does this, and that is Joshua chapter 22, verse 17. Having said that, I don't know, and I'm not the Hebrew expert, I don't know that this verse has much more in common with our verse. I'm just saying. So for those of you that are proficient in the Hebrew, please, by all means, leave your opinion in the comments because I would love to hear it. Again, that's Joshua chapter 22, verse 17. It does use the phrase et avon, the iniquity, without a verb. It's a verbless clause. So there is that. The other way of translating it, and I have to say I like this, but whether or not it is common in the Hebrew, again, I'd love to hear from someone who is far more proficient. If we take both and join together, I will avenge the iniquity. Father, full stop. I will avenge the iniquity, period. Fathers unto sons, unto grandsons, unto great-grandsons, bearing my name to deceive. And what this does, what I like to think that this does, is that rather the sons and grandsons and great-grandsons being the target of Elohim's avengement, it's instead descriptive of the iniquity. So let me say that again. Rather than the sons, the grandsons, and the great-grandsons being the target of Elohim's avengement, this clause is descriptive of the iniquity. So I'll read this clause again. So, I will avenge the iniquity, period. I am jealous. I will avenge the iniquity of, I will avenge the iniquity, full stop. And then describing the iniquity, fathers unto sons, unto great-grandsons, unto grandsons, great-grandsons, bearing my name to deceive is the way that it ends. So again, descriptive of the iniquity. In any case, we do know, however this is supposed to be passed, we do know what it is supposed to mean. And we know that because, thank God, the Moses scroll has corresponding blessings and curses. So we can go to that for clarity. And this is what, and it is very, very telling, this is what it reveals. The corresponding blessing and curse for word 7 in the Moses scroll. Blessed is the man who does not bear my name to deceive. Cursed is the man, not the man's sons, not his grandsons, not his great-grandsons. Cursed is the man who bears my name to deceive. So here we see that the curse is limited to the man alone who commits the iniquity rather than, as Job puts it, stored up for the children of the wicked. In other words, and as Exodus chapter 2, if we return to our canonical 10 Commandments, Exodus chapter 20, verse 7, and Deuteronomy chapter 5, verse 11, it puts it this way: for the Lord will not leave him unpunished who bears his name for falsehood. By the way, even the corresponding curse in Deuteronomy, and in this case it's in chapter 27, verse 15, this is the corresponding curse to the prohibition against idolatry, the first commandment as it appears in the canonical text, right, in here. Even this one says, cursed is the man who commits idolatry, right, not the man's descendants. So that has to be taken into mind. So I'd like to suggest that this represents the generational perpetuation of a deception falsely fueled with the divine name, and in this case, in the Moses scroll case, it's Elohim. It could be that the sons, the successive generations, see their father using the name to lie and think, well, if it's okay for him, I can do that too, and they perpetuate that iniquity. Or it might be that they unknowingly inherit a lie from their father and repeat it. Now, having said that, I know a lot of you are thinking of a particular verse, right? That might remind you of a passage. And it is that passage that if I had to supply a cross-reference, if I had a cross-reference Bible, and God willing we will one day, to the Moses scroll, and I had to put a cross-reference right on this particular word 7, I would absolutely be sending you to Jeremiah chapter 16. So let me read this to you, and I want to read, let's say, Jeremiah 16, verses 10 to 13, and then verse 19 that I'm sure a lot of you are thinking of right now. Now it will happen that when you tell this people all these words, they will say to you, for what reason has the Lord declared all this great disaster against us? And what is our wrongdoing? Or what is our sin that we have committed against the Lord our God? Then you are to say to them, it is because your forefathers have abandoned me, declares the Lord, and have followed other gods, and served and worshipped them. But they have abandoned me and have not kept my law. You too have done evil, even more than your forefathers. For behold, each one of you is following the stubbornness of his own heart, without listening to me. Verse 13, so I will hurl you off this land into the land which you have not known, neither you nor your fathers. And it goes on. And it says then, upon return from those nations which God has exiled them to which they were expelled, upon their return, they prophesied to say in Jeremiah chapter 16, verse 19, surely our fathers have inherited lies, deception, vanity, things wherein there is no profit. The point is that in the Moses scroll, you may be pleased to know, and I certainly was, and this is my takeaway from all of that. It certainly seems that Elohim does not transfer punishment to a guilty party's descendants. So I'll conclude with that. And Ross, are there any questions popping up? Is there anything that I need to return to?
Good comments, but no questions yet.
All right. Does anyone have any questions before we wrap up? While I take another sip of my coffee.
Yeah, I'm watching, so if they do.
Give it just a few seconds. And by the way, while we're waiting, if anyone does have any questions, just returning to the verse that I opened with, 2 Samuel chapter 12, where Nathan says, you shall not die, God has passed on, transferred your sin, and the baby dies. As horrible as that sounds. It happens again a little bit further on, and you can read about this in 2 Samuel chapter 24. The whole chapter, I think. And what happens is that it says that God incites David to commit an act which ends up being against Israel. And apparently it is a sin before God. And he numbers the people. Why exactly this is a bad thing, we don't know. It's not the point. But in this case, it is Gad, who is the prophet, I think, comes to David and says this is no good. And David, perhaps remembering, this event in his life, says to God, and I'm paraphrasing, do you think maybe you could pass that on? Do I have to be punished for that? Or do you reckon you could pass that on like you did last time? And then God says to him, and you can read this yourself, yeah, I can do that. And I'll give you 3 choices as to how you want that done. It's a little bit different between, I think it's also recorded in 1 Chronicles chapter 21, the whole chapter. And it kicks off by the way, in 1 Chronicles chapter 21, it says, this is Satan, not God. Not God. God didn't do this. God didn't incite David to do this. It was Satan. So it changes it. It recognizes there's a problem there.
That's 1 Samuel 24 and 1 Chronicles 21.
2 Samuel 24 and
yes.
1 Chronicles chapter 21, verses 1 and 9, I do believe.
Yep.
And the choices that God gives David by which he will pass on this sin is, I think in Chronicles, it's either 3 years of famine or 3 months of being pursued by your enemy, or 3 days of pestilence from the Lord. in, I think, Samuel 20, 2 Samuel chapter 24, I think it's 7 years of famine and then 3 and then 3. And David kind of thinks, well, let's get it over and done with in 3 days. And 70,000 Israelites die. 70,000. And then upon the passing on that occurs, then David goes, oh, whoa, no, I meant, no, on me now. And but it's too late. And he does this when it says that he sees an angel with his angel sword drawn out of his angel sheath and all of this. And then there's sort of a deal made by which, well, I'll tell you what, I was going to kill more people, even though God has told me not to go into Jerusalem. But if you go into Jerusalem and you buy the threshing floor of, what was his name? Yep. And you set up an altar there and make sacrifices to God, I'm not going to kill anyone else, the angel conveys to David. And I think he does so through Gad, I can't remember, but you can read it. And this, by the way, is where the Temple Mount comes from. It is this story where the Temple Mount comes from. It really is. It's a little bit hard. Yes, Ross.
We have a couple of questions.
Go for it.
Timothy Daly says, do you think it's an evolution of thought that starts with generational punishment and then gets refined as unfair?
Is it an evolution of thought that starts as transgenerational punishment and then ends as
unfair, or
as something that is unfair?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's a really good question. I don't think so. I'm going to say that because if, and I certainly believe this to be the case, if the Moses Scroll is the original document, then the Moses Scroll does not, I don't think the Moses Scroll supports the position of transgenerational punishment. And if that is, as I said, if that is the original document, then no. I think it's something that is inherited from the nations because, as I opened with, 14th century Hittite king has the understanding in his pantheon and religion that it so happens that the father's sins come upon his son, and so the sins of my father come upon me. What he's saying there in the context of the plague prayers is that his father is dead, his brother is dead, the successor to the throne, and now he therefore has succeeded the throne, and he's about to die if he doesn't somehow appease the gods for the sins of his father where it originated. It seems to be a concept of the nations around, and certainly the Hittites, if that answers the question, Ross.
Yeah, next question. Patty Tyler says, what do you think of the New Testament verse where Jesus was asked why the man was born blind, who sinned, him or his parents?
Yeah, that's such a good question, Patty. So the New Testament verse, the man who was born blind, who sinned, was it him or his parents? Absolutely reflects, such a good question, clearly reflects the understanding that, this guy could be blind because his father sinned. Jesus, is this guy blind because his father sinned? Or did he do something? His father? And I think if I remember correctly, Jesus says, no, this guy's been blind all his life, so I can fix him now.
Yep.
Cool. I think that is the end result of that. But it's a really good question. The very fact that question is asked, Patty, does reflect the idea of transgenerational punishment. Yeah.
Okay, let's see.
Mm-hmm.
A couple of comments. Eric John Nagel, the apple seems to fall close to the tree, and it's up to the son to correct himself from the father.
Yes. Yeah, that's right. So Eric's saying it's up to the son to correct himself from the father. And that's right. If by the way, Eric, if it is a situation where the son or the grandson or the great-grandson sees his ancestors still living using the name to deceive, for example, and decides that he's going to do likewise, well, yes, the sins come upon him. But here's the thing: he commits that iniquity and then is subject to the curse, right? But what if they inherit a lie, particularly a lie that involves the name of God? It's defamation, is what it is, really. It is defamation of the name of God, and it incurs a curse. And it would appear, according to Jeremiah chapter 16, that you are subject to that curse, regardless of whether you know it or not. Here they are saying, "What did we do that by which we?" And in this case, it's idolatry. But again, think about idolatry. Even idolatry is quite often a sin attached to the name. As many of us who have refined our faith from the New Testament to the Tanakh and then perhaps to the Moses Scroll are well aware that the New Testament absolutely attaches the name of God to it as a kosher stamp to give it the okay. So people inherit that, and it would suggest in Jeremiah chapter 16 that they come to realize, oh, we have inherited lies from our fathers.
Can you comment briefly? Karen asked, what do Ross and Jono think the curse looks like for this sin concerning the name of God? I think you can convey what does it mean, lifting the name to deceive.
And another word that I think is fair is to bear the name to deceive, to lift the name to deceive or bear the name to deceive. Like I said, to attach the name. Oh, you know what? Let me read you a New Testament. Quite opportune. I'll read you a New Testament verse. Oh, hang on. Have you got a New Testament Bible here?
I do. Look down right about there on that shelf.
Here we go.
There you go.
This will do. This is Hebrews chapter 6, verse 16. Look at that. I know it off by heart. It says, and it's right, it says, all right, for men swear by one greater than themselves, and with them an oath given as confirmation is an end of every dispute. So it was taken super seriously, and not just in the faith that involves Elohim, the faith of Elohim, the monotheistic faith. Every nation would do this. They would swear by their gods, those that are greater than themselves, and that would settle the dispute, because it was absolutely understood that if you did such a thing and you were to, lie, you were in serious trouble. The gods would be cranky at you. So there it is. Now, what was the point that I was making? Karen asked the question again. Do you recall?
Yeah, when the actual sin concerning the name of God. So it's that the one who lifts the name to deceive.
Yeah. So it lifting the name to deceive is a really serious thing, because, as I just mentioned, it is the rule throughout the ancient world. And actually, up until very recently, it used to mean something when you would go to court and place your hand on a Bible and swear to tell the truth.
Can it be? I think we've had a discussion about this. Could it be like if I say a falsehood to you, it's one level of bad. But if I say no, I swear by the name, then I'm pulling God into my lie. Is that fair?
Absolutely. It is defamation. You are taking, in the same way that if someone said that you said something and spread a rumor, around and said that you said something, and it destroyed, I don't know, relationships and all this sort of stuff, and caused someone to, I don't know, make an investment and it went bad or something something that you didn't say. That is absolutely defamation. And the way that you would feel if you imagine such a scenario, and perhaps you've been in such a scenario, and the way that you would feel about that, you'd be very defensive of very passionate, very guarding of the purity of your name. You didn't say that. It needs to be known, and you'd want to pursue the truth. And you'd certainly want to perhaps take action against those who defamed you. I would liken it to that. Does that answer the question?
I think so.
Yeah.
One follow-up, and I don't know if you have any insight. What would be the consequences of someone doing that?
Yeah.
The question says disease, poverty, removal from the land.
Hmm.
What do you think in terms of?
So again, we have the cursed bees, and the cursed bee is very, very simple. It just says, "Cursed be the one who lifts my name to deceive." But then, what are those curses, and what are those? What Ross and I like to refer to as the consequences of the blessings or the consequences of the cursings, um, and in this case, it is. Or this is how it reads in the Moses scroll. And you'll be familiar with this because it's not that far different from what it says in Deuteronomy.
Yeah.
And the Levites will continue to read in a loud and exalted voice, and they will say, "And it will be, if you do not listen to Elohim's voice to guard to do all of his commandments and his statutes, then all of these curses will come upon you." And this is just after the people have heard the curses being read by the Levite. Cursed be the one who da-da-da, cursed be the one. And they all say, "Amen, amen." Okay, they move on. And it says, "You will be cursed in the city and you'll be cursed in the field." Whether you live in the country or you live in the city, your basket and your kneading trough will be cursed. Your productivity, the fruit of your womb and the fruit of your ground, the offspring of your herds and the young of your flock will be cursed. You'll be cursed when you come in and you will be cursed when you go out. Elohim will give you to be smitten before your enemies. Elohim will send the curses against all the work of your hands. So just a constant opposition to that which you're trying to achieve. Elohim will make for you a horror, will make you for a horror, a proverb, an insult among all the people of the earth.
Yeah.
Elohim will restrain the heavens. The stranger in your midst will ascend higher above, and you will descend lower beneath. He will lend to you, but you will not lend to him. You'll be dependent on him. Elohim will cause you to perish, and he will destroy you from upon the face of the ground that you are to enter there to possess it. Right here, they are about to go into the land. And again, that brings us back, doesn't it, to Jeremiah chapter 16, where they're saying, "Why are you bringing this upon us? What did we do wrong? What's our sin that you should be doing this to us?" And Elohim says, "You've done worse than your fathers, because your fathers did what they did, and then you've done likewise and worse. And that's the reason why you're going to be exiled from the land," as it says here in the consequences of the curses of the Moses scroll.
Excellent. All right.
We're good.
I think that's it. Great job.
Thanks for tuning in, you guys. Thanks for the questions. Thanks for listening. I hope that makes sense. I'd love to hear from anyone who has some insight, anyone who's like I said, proficient in the Hebrew and can elaborate on some of that. Love to see it in the comments. All right. Cheers.